It was a warm Saturday morning in Los Angeles, and the city was bustling with life. The sun shone brightly over the streets, and the energy in the air was palpable. Mike Tyson's daughter, Amara, had always been drawn to community work. At just 22, she was an outspoken advocate for social justice, using her father's influence not for glamour but to bring about positive change. Today, she was scheduled to attend a charity event aimed at raising funds for underprivileged youth. Amara was a striking young woman, her athletic build hinting at her dedication to sports, while her kind smile often put people at ease. She believed in leading by example and wanted to use her platform to inspire others. Before heading to the event, she decided to stop by a small diner she frequented for a quick breakfast. She loved its cozy atmosphere and its friendly staff, who often treated her like family, unaware of her celebrity connections. As Amara entered the diner, she waved to Maria, the elderly waitress who always served her. The place was busy, filled with the sound of chatter, clinking cutlery, and the hiss of the coffee machine. She chose a booth by the window and took out her notebook, jotting down a few thoughts for her speech at the charity event. The peaceful ambience of the diner, however, was interrupted when a police officer walked in. His heavy boots clomped against the tiled floor as he made his way to the counter. The man, Officer Daniels, was known in the area for his abrasive demeanor. Tall and broad, with a face hardened by years of cynicism, Daniels had a reputation for being confrontational, especially with minorities. Amara barely noticed him at first, too engrossed in her notes. However, Daniels's loud voice soon caught her attention. He was berating Maria for taking too long to serve his coffee, his tone unnecessarily harsh. The other customers fell silent, their cheerful conversations dying down as tension filled the room. Maria, though visibly nervous, apologized and tried to hasten her movements. Amara watched the scene unfold, her heart sinking. She hated seeing anyone being treated unfairly, especially someone as kind as Maria. As Maria placed the coffee in front of Daniels, he muttered something under his breath. Amara couldn't hear it clearly, but she saw Maria's face flush with embarrassment. Unable to stay silent, Amara decided to step in. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Is there a reason you're speaking to her like that?" Daniels turned to look at her, his eyes narrowing. "Mind your business, little girl," he snapped. "This doesn't concern you." Amara stood her ground, her composure unwavering. "Actually, it does. You're in a public place, and your behavior is making everyone uncomfortable." The room grew even quieter. Danielle's expression darkened as he took a step closer to her table. "Do you know who you're talking to?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "Yes," Amara replied evenly. "A public servant who should know better than to treat people this way." Danielle's face turned red with anger. "Watch your mouth," he growled. "People like you should learn their place." Amara raised an eyebrow, her patience wearing thin. "People like me?" she repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Yeah," Daniel sneered. "Entitled kids who think they can lecture adults. You don't know anything about hard work or respect." The insult stung, but Amara refused to let him see it. Instead, she stood up, meeting his gaze with quiet strength. "Respect is earned, officer," she said, "and from what I've seen, you haven't done much to deserve it." Her words were met with a stunned silence, the other customers watching the exchange with bated breath. Daniels, however, was livid. In a fit of rage, he raised his hand, pointing a finger at her. "You think you're tough?" he barked. "Let me show you what tough looks like." Before anyone could react, Daniels lashed out, shoving Amara backward. She stumbled but managed to catch herself, her heart pounding. Gasps filled the diner as Maria rushed to her side. "You've gone too far," Maria exclaimed, her voice trembling. Amara, though shaken, straightened up and faced Daniels once more. Her voice was steady as she said, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Unbeknownst to Daniels, several patrons had been recording the incident on their phones. Videos of the altercation were already being shared on social media, and within minutes, the footage began to go viral. Daniels, oblivious to the consequences of his actions, smirked as he walked out of the diner. "Stay out of trouble, kid," he called over his shoulder, his arrogance palpable. Amara sat down, her hands trembling slightly as she processed what had just happened. Maria placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you okay, dear?" she asked softly. "I'll be fine," Amara replied, though her mind was racing. She knew she couldn't let this incident go unanswered. As she left the diner, Amara pulled out her phone and called her father. When Mike Tyson answered, his deep, familiar voice immediately put her at ease. "Hey, sweetheart," he said warmly. "Dad," Amara began, her voice faltering. "I need to tell you something." Tyson listened intently as she recounted the incident, his anger growing with every word. By the time she finished, his tone was serious. "Where is this guy now?" he asked. "He left the diner," Amara replied. "But people recorded everything. It's all over social media already." Tyson paused for a moment before speaking again. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself," he said. "But this isn't over. I'll make sure of that." Amara felt a surge of relief at her father's words. She knew he would do whatever it took to stand by her side and ensure justice was served. As she headed to the charity event, Amara couldn't help but wonder how the events of the day would unfold. One thing was certain. The racist cop had no idea who he had just messed with. The hours following the incident at the diner were a whirlwind for Amara. She attended the charity event, but her mind remained preoccupied with what had happened earlier. The hurtful words and unnecessary aggression from Officer Daniels replayed in her head like a broken record. While she maintained her composure, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling the encounter had left behind. Meanwhile, the footage of the incident began spreading across social media like wildfire. The video clearly showed Daniels berating Maria, followed by his aggressive treatment of Amara. By the afternoon, it had been shared tens of thousands of times, with hashtags like #JusticeForAmara and #AccountabilityForDaniels trending. People were appalled by the blatant misuse of power and the officer's unprofessional behavior. Messages of support flooded Amara's social media accounts, but so did messages of hate and criticism from those who refused to see the issue for what it was. Mike Tyson was at home when his assistant knocked on his office door, holding an iPad. The assistant's face was grim. "Mike," he said, handing over the device, "you're going to want to see this." The moment Tyson hit play, his expression shifted from curiosity to shock, then to barely contained fury. He watched as his daughter calmly tried to de-escalate the situation in the diner, only to be insulted and physically shoved by the officer. His fists clenched as he replayed Daniel's smug exit. "I don't care who this guy thinks he is," Tyson growled, slamming the iPad down on the desk. "He crossed the line." His assistant nodded. "It's already all over the news. Everyone's talking about it." Tyson took a deep breath, working to calm himself. Though his instinct was to act immediately, he knew that charging headfirst into the situation wouldn't help Amara. Instead, he decided to gather information. "Find out everything you can about this Officer Daniels," Tyson instructed. "I want to know who he is, what his record looks like, and how many other people he's mistreated." Elsewhere, Officer Daniels was completely unaware of the storm brewing around him. After leaving the diner, he spent the rest of his shift as if nothing had happened, believing the encounter was behind him. In his mind, the young woman he had insulted was just another entitled kid who wouldn't dare to fight back. That evening, as he sat in his patrol car sipping coffee, his partner, Officer Grady, turned to him with a worried expression. "You see what's happening online?" Grady asked, holding up his phone. Daniels frowned, taking the phone. He saw the video from the diner playing on the screen, complete with captions calling out his behavior. His name was trending, and the comments were relentless. "What the hell is this?" Daniels muttered, his face turning red. Grady hesitated. "You should probably lay low for a while. This thing is blowing up, and it's not looking good for you." Daniels scoffed. "Please, it's just internet drama. It'll blow over in a day or two." Grady didn't look convinced, but he didn't press the issue. Daniels, on the other hand, felt a flicker of unease. He had no idea who Amara was, but something about her confidence had bothered him. And now, seeing the backlash online, he started to wonder if he had made a mistake. By the next morning, Mike Tyson had a full dossier on Officer Daniels. The more he learned, the angrier he became. Daniels had a history of complaints filed against him: excessive force, inappropriate language, and bias-based profiling. Most of the complaints had mysteriously disappeared from official records, but Tyson's connections had ensured he got the full story. Tyson also discovered that Daniels was a regular at the diner where the incident had taken place, often using his position to intimidate staff and customers. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. It was a pattern of behavior. After gathering all the information, Tyson called his legal team to discuss their options. But first, he needed to talk to Amara. Amara was at home when her father arrived. She could tell from his expression that he had seen the video. "Dad," she began, but Tyson held up a hand. "Before you say anything, I need you to know how proud I am of you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You stood up for yourself and for that waitress. That takes guts." Amara smiled faintly. "Thanks, Dad, but I feel like I could have done more." "You did more than enough," Tyson reassured her. "Now it's my turn." Amara frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that guy needs to be held accountable," Tyson said firmly. "This isn't just about you. He's been doing this for years, and it's time someone stopped him." Amara hesitated. While she appreciated her father's support, she didn't want him to act out of anger. "I don't want this to turn into something violent, Dad." Tyson chuckled softly. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I will make sure he faces consequences for what he did." As the story continued to spread, public figures and organizations began weighing in. Civil rights activists called for an investigation into Daniels' behavior, while local news stations covered the story extensively. Interviews with Maria, the diner staff, and other witnesses painted a damning picture of Daniels' actions. Even celebrities began speaking out in support of Amara. Some praised her for her bravery, while others criticized the systemic issues that allowed officers like Daniels to remain on the force. Amara, however, chose to stay out of the spotlight. She spent her time preparing for the next steps, knowing her father had everything under control. It wasn't until later that day that Daniels finally learned who Amara was. He received a call from his supervisor, who was livid. "Do you have any idea who that girl you harassed is?" the supervisor barked. Daniels frowned. "Some spoiled kid, probably." "Wrong," the supervisor snapped. "She's Mike Tyson's daughter." Daniels froze, his blood running cold. "Mike Tyson? The boxer?" "That's right," the supervisor confirmed. "And he's not happy. The department is already facing heat because of you. And if this blows up any further, your career is over." Daniels' confidence crumbled as the weight of the situation hit him. He had messed with the wrong person, and now he was in deep trouble. Back at home, Tyson finalized his plan. He wasn't just going to confront Daniels. He was going to make sure the officer learned a lesson he would never forget. With the support of his legal team, community leaders, and his daughter, Tyson prepared for the next chapter in their fight for justice. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, and Daniels had no idea what was coming his way. The morning was quiet at the precinct where Officer Daniels worked. It was a deceptive calm, masking the storm that was brewing outside. Daniels sat at his desk, visibly agitated. He had spent the night fielding calls and messages from friends and colleagues, all asking about the viral video and its fallout. His once unshakable arrogance now appeared as a fragile mask, barely hiding the fear beneath. Suddenly, the door to the precinct opened, and in walked Mike Tyson. The room froze. Tyson wasn't just any celebrity. His mere presence carried an undeniable intensity. His build, his fame, and his reputation as one of the greatest fighters in history made him impossible to ignore. Officer Daniels, sitting near the back, turned pale the moment he saw Tyson. The former heavyweight champion was flanked by two attorneys and a community leader known for his activism. Tyson's expression was calm, but his eyes burned with purpose. The desk sergeant looked up nervously. "Mr. Tyson, what can we do for you?" "I need to speak to Officer Daniels," Tyson said in a tone that brooked no argument. The sergeant hesitated, glancing back at Daniels, whose face was now a mix of shock and dread. He's here, but..." "I'm not here to make trouble," Tyson interrupted. "But we need to talk. Now." The sergeant swallowed hard and gestured toward Daniels. "Go ahead." Daniels rose slowly, as if the weight of the world were pressing down on his shoulders. He tried to compose himself, but the sight of Tyson walking toward him made his knees feel weak. The room seemed to shrink as Tyson approached, his towering presence filling every corner. "Officer Daniels," Tyson began, his voice steady, "we need to talk about what happened at the diner." Daniels attempted a weak smile. "Mr. Tyson, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," Tyson cut him off. "I saw the video. I saw how you treated my daughter and that waitress. So, let's not waste time pretending it didn't happen." Daniels stammered, his usual bravado completely gone. "Look, it wasn't personal. I didn't know she was your daughter." Tyson's eyes narrowed. "It shouldn't matter who she is. Whether she's my daughter, someone else's kid, or a stranger, you had no right to treat her that way. What you did was wrong, plain and simple." Daniels tried to protest. "I was just doing my job." "Your job?" Tyson's voice rose slightly, the first sign of his simmering anger. "Your job is to protect and serve, not to belittle, intimidate, and assault people. You think wearing that badge gives you the right to act like a bully?" The room was silent, the other officers watching with bated breath. Tyson's attorneys and the community leaders stood nearby, ready to step in if needed. But for now, Tyson had the situation under control. One of Tyson's attorneys stepped forward, holding a folder. "Officer Daniels, we've conducted an independent investigation into your actions. Not just from the incident at the diner, but over the past several years. What we've found is deeply troubling." The attorney opened the folder and began reading aloud. "Multiple complaints of excessive force, allegations of racial profiling, intimidation of civilians, dozens of incidents swept under the rug." Daniels's face turned beet red. "Those complaints were unsubstantiated," he muttered. "Unsubstantiated because the victims were too scared to push back," the attorney replied. "But now, with the evidence we've gathered and the video of your behavior, there's no escaping accountability." Tyson stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "This isn't just about Amara. It's about everyone you've hurt because you thought you were untouchable. Well, guess what? You're not." Daniels, desperate to regain control of the situation, tried to explain. "Look, Mr. Tyson, I was under a lot of stress that day. It wasn't personal. Sometimes things get heated, you know?" Tyson's expression didn't change. "Stress doesn't give you a free pass to treat people like garbage. Everyone's under stress, Daniels. But not everyone uses it as an excuse to abuse their power." The community leader, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Officer Daniels, your actions are a reflection of a larger problem within the system. People like you abuse their authority because you think you won't face consequences. But today that changes." Daniels's confidence crumbled completely. He could feel the walls closing in, his career hanging by a thread. Tyson turned to the precinct's captain, who had been watching the exchange from his office door. "Captain, what are you going to do about this?" The captain, clearly uncomfortable, stepped forward. "Mr. Tyson, I assure you we're taking this matter very seriously. Officer Daniels will be placed on administrative leave while we conduct a thorough investigation." Tyson's attorneys exchanged knowing looks. They had heard this line before, and it often meant little would change. Tyson, however, wasn't about to let the matter drop. "That's not enough," Tyson said firmly. "We're filing a formal complaint with the department and pursuing legal action. If you won't hold Daniels accountable, we'll make sure the courts do." The captain nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I understand, Mr. Tyson. We'll cooperate fully with your legal team." News of Tyson's confrontation at the precinct spread quickly. Media outlets picked up the story, framing it as a powerful stand against injustice. Interviews with Maria and other witnesses from the diner added further credibility to Tyson's claims. Social media erupted with support for Tyson and Amara. The hashtags #JusticeForAmara and #HoldDanielsAccountable trended for days. Activists organized protests outside the precinct, demanding not only Daniels' dismissal but broader reforms within the police department. Amara, meanwhile, watched the developments with mixed emotions. She was proud of her father for standing up for her and for the larger cause, but she also felt the weight of the public spotlight. Still, she knew this fight was bigger than her. As the days went on, Daniels found himself increasingly isolated. His colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with his behavior. The department's internal investigation revealed a pattern of misconduct, and public pressure made it impossible for the administration to ignore. Within a week, Daniels was suspended without pay, pending termination. He also faced a civil lawsuit from Tyson's legal team, which sought damages for emotional distress and a formal apology to Amara and Maria. For Daniels, the reality of his actions finally set in. His arrogance had cost him everything: his reputation, his career, and the respect of his peers. Back at home, Tyson sat with Amara, reflecting on the events of the past week. "You know," he said, "I've faced a lot of fights in my life, but this one felt different." Amara smiled. "That's because this wasn't just about us, Dad. It was about standing up for what's right." Tyson nodded, his pride in his daughter evident. "You're right, and I'm proud of you, Amara. You handled yourself with grace and strength. This fight might not be over, but we've already made a difference." As they embraced, Tyson felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle against injustice wasn't easy, but it was one worth fighting, and he wasn't about to back down. The fallout from the confrontation was swift and profound. News of the incident between Officer Daniels and Mike Tyson reverberated across the country. Television networks, online platforms, and social media were ablaze with commentary, analysis, and debates about systemic racism, abuse of power, and Tyson's courageous stand. However, amid the chaos, the story began to shift towards something deeper: redemption and change. In the weeks following his suspension, Daniels found himself living in isolation. The once proud officer, who had prided himself on his authority, now faced the harsh reality of public scrutiny. His arrogance had been replaced by shame, and for the first time in his life, he was forced to confront the consequences of his actions. Daniels attended a mandatory sensitivity training program, but it quickly became evident that something deeper was required. Under pressure from Tyson's legal team and civil rights organizations, Daniels agreed to a restorative justice process. This program brought him face-to-face with Amara, Maria, and other community members he had harmed over the years. The first meeting was tense. Daniels struggled to maintain eye contact as Amara described how his actions had left her shaken and humiliated. Maria shared her own story, recounting years of discrimination she had faced as a Black woman working in customer service. "I used to think people like you didn't care about people like me," Maria said, her voice steady but emotional. "But hearing your apology today, I hope you've learned something." Daniels, for the first time, appeared genuinely remorseful. "I can't undo what I've done," he admitted, "but I want to make things right." While Daniels was undergoing his personal reckoning, Tyson channeled his energy into something larger. He partnered with community leaders, activists, and legal experts to advocate for police reform. Together, they launched the Champions for Justice initiative, aimed at addressing systemic issues within law enforcement. The program focused on three key areas: accountability, education, and community engagement. Tyson personally funded scholarships for aspiring law enforcement officers from underrepresented communities, ensuring future generations of police reflected the diversity of the populations they served. During a press conference announcing the initiative, Tyson stood alongside Amara, Maria, and several prominent activists. "This isn't just about one bad cop," Tyson said. "It's about creating a system where people feel safe, respected, and valued, no matter who they are or where they come from." The initiative gained widespread support, with celebrities, athletes, and everyday citizens contributing to the cause. Tyson's unwavering commitment to justice inspired others to take action, proving that even the toughest battles could be fought with determination and compassion. Amara's life changed dramatically after the incident. The shy teenager who had once been content to stay in the background found herself thrust into the spotlight. Interviews, speaking engagements, and invitations to events poured in, but Amara remained grounded. She saw this newfound attention as an opportunity to advocate for others who had experienced injustice. With her father's support, Amara started a nonprofit organization called Voices of Tomorrow, aimed at empowering young people to speak out against discrimination and inequality. The organization provided workshops, mentorship programs, and resources for students, helping them build confidence and leadership skills. During the organization's first event, Amara stood before a packed auditorium, her voice steady and clear. "We all have the power to create change," she said. "It starts with standing up, speaking out, and refusing to let fear silence us. Together, we can build a better future." Maria, the waitress whose dignity had been defended by Tyson, also found her life taking an unexpected turn. The diner where she worked became a symbol of resilience and hope, drawing visitors from across the country who wanted to support her and hear her story. The diner's owner, recognizing Maria's courage, promoted her to manager. Maria used her position to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for both staff and customers. She also became a mentor to younger employees, sharing her experiences and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. In her free time, Maria volunteered with local advocacy groups, speaking at events and participating in initiatives aimed at addressing workplace discrimination. Her journey from victim to advocate served as a powerful reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness and support could have a ripple effect. Months after the incident, Daniels requested a private meeting with Tyson, Amara, and Maria. He had completed the restorative justice program and wanted to express his gratitude and remorse in person. The meeting took place in a community center, away from the media and public eye. Daniels began by thanking them for giving him the chance to reflect on his actions. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said, his voice trembling, "but I want you to know that I'm committed to becoming a better person." Tyson, ever the symbol of strength and grace, nodded. "We all make mistakes," he said. "What matters is how we move forward. If you're willing to change, then you've already taken the first step." Amara and Maria also shared their thoughts, offering cautious optimism about Danielle's transformation. While trust would take time to rebuild, the meeting ended on a hopeful note, with all parties agreeing to work toward a better future. As time passed, the story of Mike Tyson's stand against injustice became more than just a headline. It became a movement. The initiative sparked by the incident led to tangible changes within the police department, including new training programs, increased transparency, and stronger accountability measures. Tyson's advocacy work continued to thrive, with Champions for Justice expanding its reach across the country. Amara's nonprofit grew into a national organization, inspiring thousands of young people to find their voices and make a difference. Maria's story of resilience and determination resonated with people from all walks of life, proving that even the smallest acts of courage could lead to profound change. In the end, the incident that had started as an act of injustice became a catalyst for hope, healing, and transformation. Tyson, Amara, Maria, and even Daniels played their parts in creating a legacy that would endure for generations. And as Tyson often said during his speeches, "It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Together, we're moving forward."